Hey everyone, I'm Josh Olson. This is my YouTube channel, A Conversation With. Today's guest has nearly 3 decades in the radio business. He's currently the managing partner at Woof Boom Radio. Today I have a conversation with Jim Stone. Jim Stone, how are you?
Hi, Josh. How are you? I'm doing well. I'm pretty excited to talk to you. I'm glad somebody at least wants to talk to me.
How's Indiana? How's the weather?
You know what? It's a little chilly, a little rainy out today, but we'll get through it. It's March, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's start way back. Let's start back in your ISU days. You graduated from ISU?
No, graduate. Oh no, I went to ISU.
Oh, you went? Okay.
I like to tell people I proudly flunked out of Illinois State University. Being a student wasn't my biggest strength. I came from a very small town, and I moved into a dorm that was twice the size of my hometown. And I quickly found that you could find people to go out partying and drinking and doing all sorts of stuff any night of the week. And I kind of fell into that trap. So I hit it pretty hard there for the first couple of years.
So after your college days, you could say, how'd you get into the radio business? Like,
I was actually removing asbestos. That was my job. And as I did it, I just went, man, this isn't for me. You know, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. There's something more for me. I just didn't know what it was. And I'd always been fascinated by radio. I grew up around St. Louis, and I loved the radio. And I was the guy who people said, oh, that's 94.7. I could go, oh, that's 94.7 Casey. I knew the call letters. I knew the numbers. I knew the people who were on the radio. I was always fascinated by it. And I said, you know what? I ought to try this radio thing. I would really, really like it. So there was a broadcasting school in St. Louis that I signed up to go to. I went there and I got a job, and I ended up, I started working at WJBM, Jerseyville, Illinois, 1480 AM. And I started out running religious shows on Sunday morning.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I would go to work at the radio station Saturday morning at 6 o'clock, and I'd work till 6 o'clock at night. When I walked in, I'd turn the station on. When I walked out, I'd turn the station off and get back up and do it again on Sunday.
Oh, wow. So long hours. And how long did you do that for?
It wasn't that long. It was funny. There hadn't been any turnover at the radio station. They didn't have any positions there. And then I got that. And then somebody else moved on, and somebody else moved on. And the next thing I knew that I was doing the afternoon show at WJBM. I don't know how that happened. I was still going to school and working at WJBM, and it was awesome. You know, at the time, we were still spinning records.
But it's talk radio, right? Is that what you said? It was AM?
No, it was AM. It was like a full service radio station for a small little town in central Illinois. And we would do the swap shop stuff. What do you have for sale? What do you want to buy? We'd play some songs in between. We'd hit the news. We did everything for it. With the farm reports, the Brownfield Network. It was pretty fun.
And then after you moved on, where'd you move on to after that?
I went to a radio station, 94.3 WZKB, Wallace, North Carolina, which is right outside of Wilmington. Okay. That was after I got out of broadcasting school.
Was it 1989?
Probably 1989. Why? How do you know this? Stop.
Well, I had to do some research.
Okay. So 1989 and 90. And then after about 9 months there, I just couldn't make ends meet. I was making $200 a week before taxes.
Oh, wow.
And had no air conditioning, and Wilmington in the summertime is a miserable hot place. So packed up and left, and ended up in Champaign, Illinois. And I went to work in Mattoon. I got a part-time job in Mattoon at 101.3 WMCI, which was a country station. And I did that for a little bit. And then I worked at WDNL in Danville, which was a top 40 type station.
Okay.
And I did part-time there, nights and mornings, and then to afternoons. And then there was a rock station opening. in Champaign. And that's where I went to. And man, I totally dug the rock show. And I started doing a morning show there.
You were the
So
host. You were the morning show host.
I was a co-host.
You're a
My
co-host?
program director was a very good friend of mine, still to this day, by the name of Greg Farber. And Greg and I did the morning show there for a couple of years. Greg got fired, then I got fired, and we had some fun times. It just, the station didn't make any money, and that's just the nature of the beast. And I didn't know what I was going to do because I was doing a morning show. It's like, how do I strike out on my own in this rock radio business? And at that point in time, I ended up in Lafayette, Indiana. Like the day I got the job in Lafayette, Indiana, was the day my unemployment ran out.
Oh, wow.
I remember that being pretty cool. I was like, oh yeah, unemployment runs out, I got a job. And so I moved to Lafayette, which is where I am now. But I stayed here for a couple of years. I guess you just kind of had to bounce around a little bit at the time.
Mm-hmm. And then about, what was it, early 2000, you wound up in Rockford.
I went from Lafayette to Terre Haute, Indiana for 4 years to program a radio station. I wanted to be a program director.
Okay.
And I got that job. I remember when I interviewed for the gig, I called the guy up, and he was an old time radio guy. And he said, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing, and I shouldn't have had it on. I said to him, he told me he hired somebody else. And I was just full of piss and vinegar at the time. And he said, I hired somebody else. And I said, Mr. Brown, no offense, but you just made the biggest mistake of your radio career. And literally 3 weeks later, I got a phone call from Ken Brown that said, Jim, wanted to call you and let you know I made the biggest mistake of my radio career. Can you call me? and that's how I got a programming job. And then about after 4 years of that, I moved to Rockford. And that was right in March of 2000 is when I got to Rockford. And that was pretty much life-changing, I think. And
you came to Rockford, and the Ice Hogs were there, and you kind of had your mind set on getting involved with the Ice Hogs. Is that correct?
Well, I loved hockey, and I knew that they were like the biggest draw in town at that point in time. They were doing well, and I said I wanted to make the radio station and the hockey team synonymous, and I wanted to control all the sports teams with the radio station. So, and the Ice Hogs were number one on the list, and somehow that happened. We got to do that, and we got involved with it, and we pushed and pushed and pushed until it was ours. And then it sort of happened with the Rockford Lightning, and then it happened with the baseball team as well. And because if you're running a male-oriented radio station, sports is going to be a driving factor in it. And that was pretty much what I thought, that because to me, radio has to be more than just the music. It's got to have so much more to it. And that sports base in Rockford was perfect for that radio station, or so I thought. Yeah, so let's talk about the Ice Hogs. I don't know how many people actually know, but you did a lot of things with the Ice Hogs. Not only were you like an MC, you did like post-game interviews. You interviewed the coaches. Yeah, I did the on-ice stuff, or Double T did the on-ice stuff, and I did it. And then I got it one night because of high school football or something. We had to run an Ice Hogs game on the X, and they always ran on the AM station. And my boss said, well, you can do it, but you have to somehow be involved in the broadcast. I went, cool, I'll gladly do it. And I started wandering around the building with a microphone. And I will never forget that night, the period was ending. I went down to the ice, and Preston Mitzi from the Ice Hogs at the time was coming off the ice, and he was the captain. And I remember he just finished up a shift. And I grabbed him, and you could still hear him huffing and breathing heavy. And I asked him about the period, and it sounded amazing. And right then, Mike Peck and I both went, oh, we're on to something here. And it turned out to be a whole lot of fun. And through that, the Ice Hogs then grew from into the Colonial Cup champions, which was just a ton of fun for all of us. And then when they went to the American Hockey League, and all of a sudden you had the Blackhawks guys coming in, that was an impressive time.
What was I know a lot of people had mixed emotions on them going from the UHL to the AHL. What was your take on that at the time?
At the time, I thought, well, this is great. We're going to have better hockey. We're going to have greater opportunity to see better players come in. And I think there was a part of you that was sad to see it go, because there wasn't going to be that fan connection with players that would come back year after year. So that would be a little bit difficult. And it was going to be just a different type of mentality in the hockey player, who went from making, $600, $700 a week to some of these guys making $900,000 a year. It was quite different. Our parking lot looked a lot different when they'd come by the radio show.
So who would you, we're talking about UHL days, but who is your favorite person? Who is your favorite person to interview?
Well, Steve Martinson in the United Hockey League days. I mean, and it was always great, because if you didn't know what to ask Marty, you would just bring up something about the refereeing from the week before, and he was off on a tangent. And plus, because of his playing days, Steve had some amazing stories. I find it funny that he's been so successful wherever he's been, but he's always had the same exact team. The names have changed, but it's the exact same players and the exact same mentality. And to hear Marty tell old stories was just fantastic.
Yeah. So moving into the AHL, did you kind of feel like the Ice Hogs were going to take a nosedive because they weren't going to have those players all the time? Those players are going to
No. I remember when that affiliation got announced, all of a sudden one afternoon we were talking with Dennis Savard, and you knew, and he was the head coach of the Blackhawks, and you knew it was going to be different. And Mike Peck would go out and get us the first round draft pick for us to interview. And that one year, in between being announced as the first round draft pick in Chicago and heading to Wrigley Field to throw out the first pitch, Patrick Kane called in, and nobody else cared that Patrick Kane was the first round draft pick of the Chicago Blackhawks at the time.
That's awesome. That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really, really amazing, because the Blackhawks weren't a big deal at the time. They were just bleh. But all those guys who were playing that first year, that was just an amazing time. All the fruit on that farm club tree was ripe and ready to go to the NHL.
So you're in Lafayette. Do you have a hockey team close by, or?
We don't. The closest is the Indianapolis Fuel, which is the Ice Hogs affiliate.
Really,
yeah.
That's awesome.
But I haven't been down. I haven't seen any hockey in forever.
Do you miss it?
Yes, I miss it. But in Lafayette, the one thing I do have to take its place is Purdue University is here.
Okay.
It's right across the river. So, I mean, it's really cool to be able to go to watch a nationally broadcast football game, basketball game, and be home in 7 minutes.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And the Boilermakers had a pretty good basketball team the past few years. They've made the NCAA tournament each year that I've been here. They almost made it to the Final Four. They were just a second away from getting to the Final Four when they lost to Virginia a few years back. So that's kind of fun. Plus, even the Ice Hogs and all the sports teams in Rockford were great. But here, because it's the university and it's 40,000 people and so many employees, the town is far more invested in Purdue University sports than the city of Rockford was in their sports, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
It's just more people, and it's funny because with Purdue, only people who live in Lafayette care about Purdue almost. It seems like. It's like us against the world.
Oh, okay. So
but IU sucks.
What's that?
IU sucks. It's just one of those things. Yeah. By the way, I am sporting my Purdue shirt.
Yeah, I saw that. The Purdue shirt.
So
you came to Rockford in 2000, and then Wingding had already started. Started in '93. Talk about getting involved with Wingding.
Wingding was something that when I got to Rockford, it was in March, and they said, hey, we need to up the entertainment value on Wingding. We can't do it with local bands anymore. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, great. I'm the guy who has to call the traditional Pistol Pete guy and tell him we're not going to use them anymore for Wingding because we need national bands now. And they said the event's in May. And I said, March, April, May. You don't give me any time to do this. I had started working with a group in Terre Haute out of New York City called McGathy Promotions. And my friend Finn Daly was a guy there. And Finn and I had become friends and we'd work together. And I'd found out Finn was managing a band called Three Doors Down.
Okay.
And I was looking for bands. And I finally found that Three Doors Down at the time was going from Minneapolis on Saturday, had Sunday off, and they were going to be in Indianapolis on Monday. So I reached out to their booking agent and said, can I book them? We got into an argument over $500. And basically Finn made sure I got the band. And I think we paid them $4,000 to play the first Wingding. My budget was $10,000 all in for sound, stage, and bands. And I got them for $4,000. And then I booked a band called Stir out of St. Louis for $2,000. And that was my budget. And I remember I got a phone call from a guy named John Kuliak. And John said, hey, Jim, I've got this band. They're out on tour with Three Doors Down. Can you let them play your show? And I said, man, I don't have any more money, John. He goes, that's okay. They'll play for free. And I said, well, okay, I kind of like this one song we're playing. We'll throw them on. I'll give them 30 minutes to start the show. And that little band was Nickelback.
Yeah.
And I still to this day have the signed contract with Nickelback for $0 at Davis Park for May, whatever it was. I showed it to the band years later when I think they make $1 million a night now.
Yeah, easy. Probably.
It's pretty amazing. And I showed them the contract, and they all autographed it for me. It was really neat. As a matter of fact, I want to say the drummer from Three Doors Down left Three Doors Down not long after that and joined up with Nickelback.
Oh, okay.
At some point in time, yeah.
So
crazy.
After the first year, talk about moving on, like how much time you took to book these bands, like what the process is. Is it difficult? Sounds like a pain.
It's a huge pain. It was one of the most difficult things. And I think after a while, you feel pressure, like, oh my goodness, I have to do this. Like, it kind of was a little jokey thing, kind of fun thing. And we did Days of the New. We did Hayseed Dixie one year, the hillbilly AC/DC band. And so we were just having fun with it. And then we booked Power Man 5000. And all of a sudden we had 9,000 people in Davis Park. And that was really, really big. And we knew that this event, I think the last year in Davis Park was Seether played there. And they had been, I had let them out of a deal. They were supposed to play a couple years before, and I'd let them out of a deal to play a much bigger show in Boston. And their manager said, I won't forget this. And the next year I called him and said, hey, Rick, how about Seether this year? He said, they're recording an album. The next year I got a phone call from him. He said, Jim, Seether's done. They're on the road. We've got Rockford marked in for Memorial Day weekend. We need this much money. And we paid him that. And that was pretty cool. And then we moved it to the Speedway, and that's when things just got silly. I mean, we did the first year at the Speedway. We didn't know what to expect. And then I was challenged by my boss at the time, Jay Chapman. He said, Jim, you need to make this bigger. And I said, okay. And I remember I walked into his office and I said, I have a chance to get Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace to come. They're co-headlining a tour. I need this much money. And so Jay called up the CEO of our company at the time for Maverick Media. and he said, Jim needs this much money for Wingding. And the CEO screams into the phone, we can't spend that kind of money on Wingding. And to his credit, Jay said, well, I guess we can't do Wingding. And he hung up. And the phone immediately rang back, and it was the CEO going, we have to do Wingding. And he said, well, then Jim needs this much money. And he goes, okay, do it. And that's when Wingding took off. And those bands were big at the time. Buck Cherry had Crazy Bitch come out, and we booked them. Finger 11 had a song called Paralyzer at the time that was a big hit. And that kind of took off. And I think we ended up with 24,000 people that year. And we didn't know what the hell was going on. I mean, none of us had any idea that it was going to blow up the way it did. It was spectacular.
Talk about the overhead with Wingding, like the Speedway. Were they gracious enough to use it? Or?
No. I mean, we were all in. Everybody was in it to make. We, as Wingding, we never said we were going to make money. Our goal was to never lose money. Our goal was to make $1 realistically. The Speedway, Greg McCarnes and Jody Deary and her family, they were unbelievable partners to work with. They were, I can't say enough about it. Grew because of Greg and all the folks out at the Speedway. They did just an unbelievable job. When we put that thing on at the airport, Greg McCarnes just did everything under the sun to make that thing work. So yeah, we were all there to at the end of the day, you're a business and you need to make some money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wingding, a couple of them did well. A couple other they didn't necessarily do everything we needed them to do. My goal was to always cover the band costs at the door.
And that's expensive in itself, just the band.
Oh yeah. I mean, I said what the first Wingding, my budget was $10,000. I think the last Wingding we spent over 300 and some.
Ooh.
Yeah, they were big numbers, But by the time you start bringing in stage lights, I remember, I think Tone Loc, when we brought in Tone Loc to do his thing, I think that was like a $7,000 just kind of, what the hell, let's do it. It's $7,000, sure, why not? That was the fun of it.
Talk about the day. Like, what time did you start? What time did you get out of there? When did the band start arriving? They early morning.
Early morning, early morning.
And somebody had to be there.
Yeah, I would say I probably got up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, maybe something like that. Especially at the end of it. One of my favorite moments, I think, was during the Seether Wingding. The guy said this would be a great event if there was somebody sober to run it, because we were just all hammered and we were just in that country club phase of life, I guess. But when it started getting big, there was no more drinking. It was impossible to manage. So yeah, it would be all week getting ready. And then that morning up bright and early, probably at 5, sit down in my RV trailer office that I had, and it would be midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning by the time you got home. And it was truly one of the longest days ever.
It was worth it though, right?
Oh, it was. Yeah. I mean, it was tough, but when you got to see what you put together, and how it pulled off and how people just loved it, that was the magic of it all. And I would think, any Wingding, if I got to see one song from every band, I was lucky.
Yeah.
It was just, it was a labor of love. And it's funny, I always laughed at it because I was the kid who could never get good concert tickets. I always had just awful, shitty luck. And then there I was putting on a show of that magnitude. It was unreal.
Let's talk about the X a little bit.
Yeah.
You started in 2000. Did you start in the afternoons, or where did you start out at?
Yeah, I started in the afternoons doing a show by myself, and I don't know, it was what it was, and I think I pissed a few people off, and and made some enemies, and that was good. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. I literally hung on to my Southern accent as much as I could to sound different. I wanted that. And then one day Double T came in, and we just started talking. And then he'd come in for another break the next day, and another break. Then pretty soon it was 2 breaks and 3 breaks. I think we were doing a show as Stone and Double T in the afternoons for a while before they ever officially said we were officially a show. Because Double T I don't think he was on the radio at that point in time. I think he just filled in on the weekends or something.
He was doing promotions, right?
Yeah, he was the promotions guy. And he was just fun to have around and to bounce stuff with. And so that kind of took off. And then they wanted to move us to mornings. I don't remember how the whole thing came about, but they moved us to mornings. And I believe at that point in time, I said we would do the morning show, but we had to have Kristen Carlson do news with us. And that Kristen's role would be, would go from being a real news person on WNTA to being our quote news person. And that would be her priority. And the other news would be secondary. And we did, and we brought her in, and I was recently talking about it. That was just, we were dysfunctional as dysfunctional can be. And I think it made for some great real, and I think that's the key word, real and authentic radio.
Local too.
It was local, but it was real. And if we had an argument, we had an argument on the air. If whatever was going on, we had it on the air, and we lived it on the air. And I think we all almost died because of it.
And then in 2006, they moved you guys back to afternoons.
Yeah, I don't really remember why that happened. And then they moved us back to mornings. You just bounced around. I know we moved back to mornings on 11/11/11. That's the day I do remember.
So going from mornings to afternoons, do you take it personal, or do you take it as a business decision?
No, it was a business. It was a business decision. I don't even remember why we went to afternoons.
I think it was Bob and Tom. Was it Bob and Tom?
Put Bob and Tom back on. We probably put Bob and Tom back on the X. I don't remember. No, it didn't bother me any. I was just like, as long as I'm still on the radio. I loved being on the radio. That was what I'd wanted to do, and we were having fun doing it. And then there's not a whole lot of heavy lifting.
And then in 2016, Double T went a different direction, or 2017.
I think it was 2017. Double T. It was funny. Neither one of us were real happy with what was going on in the building. It wasn't fun. And I remember I looked at T and I said, do I look for jobs for us or for me? And he couldn't leave because of his daughter. Obviously, she was in school, and he wasn't going to leave. And I remember I had a job interview. I pulled him aside. I said, look, I'm going to be out on Monday because I have a job interview. He goes, well, I got to tell you something. I've got a job interview over at the Eagle. And I'm like, well, good for you, man. That was great. My job interview went great, and they wanted to give me a job, but just the money wasn't right. And so I didn't get it. And so I came back to work, worked by myself. And that was it was awful. And I hated every minute of it. Hated every minute of doing a show without him. Truly.
I know I saw your post on Facebook, but just talk about that day that Double T left, and how was it after that? I know you said it was bad, but what did it mean to have Double T sitting next to you?
Oh, it was awful. I would still click on both microphones. Yeah, it was just, it's tough when you get used to working with someone for so long, and they're there every day. I mean, look, I got married and divorced, and I think remarried again in the time I worked with Double T. We traveled the country together. We went everywhere together. We spent hours upon hours. Our wives made fun of us that we were like an old married couple when we traveled. We could finish each other's sentences. When we worked together, we didn't even have to look at one another.
Yeah.
to know when the other was going to talk. I mean, it was just, we had that chemistry and we knew how it worked. It was pretty special. So to have him go away, I mean, I couldn't blame him. We knew the end was near, that it just wasn't going to be the same. They didn't want us doing what we did. And you know what? They owned the radio station. They could do what they want.
So
But it didn't mean we had to like it.
true. Yeah, true. Let's talk about Woof Boom. You're a managing partner in Woof Boom. It started in 2017. Just talk about, well, I'm just kind of curious how you go shopping for a radio station.
It's interesting. I'd always had a dream to own a radio station. And when I was looking for the job, I was out and I'd interviewed for a couple of things. One job I was up for was working for the San Diego Padres, and then that they had a hiring freeze, and I couldn't get that job. And then Jay Chapman, my old boss from Rockford, called and said, "Jim, I know what you've always wanted to do," because I'd spoken to him about owning radio stations, and he said, "There's an opportunity in Lafayette, Indiana. I'm thinking about doing this, but the only way I'll do it is if you'll do it with me." And I said, I'd be honored. Jay, without a doubt, is one of the best people I've ever met in my life. He's just one of these guys that when his ship rises with the water, he's bringing other people up with him. And that's what he's done with me. And he's been very patient and helpful and allowed me to learn parts of the business that I've never known about. And there's been a frustration level there, but and there's, especially last year during the shutdown and pandemic, that was awful. But we made it through, and we're having a successful 2021. It's one radio station right now. It's Q1067, and we play. What are we playing? A lot of Kelly Clarkson. I don't even know who we got on. So some, I believe, a lot of Kelly Clarkson and Maroon 5, a lot of Taylor Swift.
So when you get into radio, does the music, I know you like rock, but does it matter if you're opening a radio station?
It's never mattered to me. It really hasn't. The radio was the important thing to me. The music is just about we came to town and we looked at where the holes were. Where was there an opportunity for us to build a radio station? And the funny part is normally when you buy a radio station, you get the equipment, you get the audience, you get all their past business, you get it. This was started from scratch, and that doesn't happen these days. We built this thing from absolutely nothing. When we bought it, we got an antenna and a transmitter, and that was it. What you see behind us is now a thriving business in downtown Lafayette, Indiana.
That's awesome. And you guys are doing good. You made it through COVID. You're doing good now. Everything's...
Yeah. 2021 has turned around. I got lucky in February and hit a jackpot on something, and it's been really, really helpful to the business, because 2020 was going to be our year to move. It was going to be the year to take off after 2 years of struggling. And we knew the first two were going to be tough. But then when the pandemic hit and all I got was, "Hey, Jim, can I cancel my advertising?" It was a little difficult. But I think we did everything right during the pandemic. And we served our community to the best of our ability. And we made local businesses that much more of a priority. And that's benefiting us now.
So if do you have any advice for people looking to get into radio?
Don't.
Is it
go to college, get a degree? I don't know that it's a dying breed. It's just more difficult now. I mean, you look at all the people that got laid off during COVID, all the radio people that are out there, it's going to be difficult. But somebody's going to be great. Somebody's going to have a dream, and they're going to look and they're going to say, "Oh man, don't tell me what I can and can't do. I'm going to go do radio." And God love them for it. I hope they do. We need good people in this business. And I think radio can still thrive, especially in the model that we have. I think radio as a music delivery service is going to be a rough road to go. But if you're involved in your community and you're involved with what goes on, and helping to build it, a town and a city, and build things up, and get involved, I think radio is the best way to do that. I think it's still very, very viable. So get involved in the community and make things happen, and your business will succeed because of that. It can't be about 50 minutes of music an hour anymore. It can't be about. It has to be client based and client focused, and making sure you're feeding their needs, and maybe when I started this, I was a programming purist, and I said it's going to be like this, and I've quickly learned that it can't be that. You have to adapt some things to fit different clients.
And I just have one last question for you. If you
Okay.
weren't in radio, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be homeless. I'd be out on the street. I don't drugs. I'd be doing drugs. How about that? That's what I'd be doing. No, I don't really know. I have no idea what I would be doing if it wasn't for this. This was a dream, and it continues to be that. Now, some days that dream's a nightmare. I'm not going to lie to you, but this is all I've ever really wanted to do. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know what else I'd do. What did Double T say he would do?
Double T, what did he say? I think he said mentor.
He'd be a mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Is there big money in mentoring? I don't know. I'm just jacking.
I'm not a mentor.
Yeah. No.
The time, Stone.
What's that?
I said I appreciate you taking the time to do the interview.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Yeah, no problem.
I greatly appreciate it. Have yourself a wonderful day. In Lafayette, Indiana, it's Lafayette Q1067.
Thank you all for watching today. Did you enjoy this conversation? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below to be notified of all my conversations. See you again soon.